Please help my mommy. They're hurting her." The desperate scream tore through the quiet suburban street like a crack of lightning in a clear sky. Her small voice quivered with raw fear and desperation, carrying across the cracked pavement toward the growl of idling motorcycles outside a weathered roadside diner. The little girl, Lena Green, only 7 years old, dressed in a faded pink t-shirt, now smudged with dirt, dashed barefoot toward the group of bikers clustered there. Tears carved paths down her round, flushed cheeks as she tripped slightly, her tiny fists clenched at her sides, her cries piercing the lazy afternoon haze. Across the way, several of the bikers glanced up in bewilderment. Engines throbbed low under the bright sun. The tallest among them, a rugged man with a salt and pepper beard and steady blue eyes etched by years on the road, set down his coffee mug deliberately, his face hardening from casual interest to sharp alarm. But before the spark of heroism ignited, before those engines thundered into action, the day had begun like any other for Tosha Green. Before we dive deeper, imagine if this were your story. Hit that like button if it moves you. Share your thoughts in the comments on what you'd do in her shoes, and spread this tale if it resonates. If you are new to this channel, click on the subscribe button now, and ensure you watch this story to the end. This is a story that you can't miss a second of. Let's ride on. That Sunday afternoon, the sun beat down relentlessly over the rundown east side of town, where faded storefronts and potholed roads framed a world of quiet endurance. Amid the shimmer of heat rising from the sidewalks, Tosha Green was already pushing through her routine. Tosha was a black single mother, 32, resilient yet worn thin. Her shoulders slumped from endless hours hunched over machines. Her hands were chapped and raw from harsh soaps and endless loads. Yet she held her posture straight, her braids neatly pulled back, and her laugh light when it came. Not out of joy for the grind, but because survival demanded it. After her partner's abandonment years ago, Tosha had only her daughter Lena to anchor her. Every scrubbed floor, every skipped meal, every weary step was for her. The laundromat wasn't just her job, it was her proving ground. Day in and day out, she battled fatigue, prejudice, and the invisible walls that kept her family on the edge. In the cramped apartment they called home, Lena perched on the edge of the bed, swinging her legs as she munched on a simple breakfast. "Mama, look. I dreamed we had a house last night," she said eagerly, her eyes wide with wonder. Tosha smiled faintly, though her gaze held shadows. "Tell me about it, baby. What did it look like?" Lena beamed. "It was yellow, with a yard so big we could run forever, and a puppy chasing us." That vision tugged at Tosha's heart. She turned away, stirring oatmeal slowly. "One day, honey," she murmured. Around noon, after her shift, her phone vibrated in her pocket. The number flashed from an unknown caller, but she answered anyway. Bills didn't pay themselves. The voice on the other end was curt, from a temp agency. "Tosha, we need you for an extra shift tonight." No excuses. Tosha hesitated, her throat tight with exhaustion. "All right, I'll be there. But I've got my girl with me." "Doesn't matter," the voice snapped. "Get it done." The call ended abruptly. Tosha lingered for a second, the weight settling heavier on her chest. She'd barely rested from the morning rush, her feet still throbbing from standing all day, but she pulled herself up, took a steadying breath, and headed out with Lena. "Mama?" Lena asked quietly, tugging her hand. "Can we play in the park today? You look so tired." Tosha mustered a grin. "We'll try, sweetie, but work calls first." So they trudged on, Tosha hauling grocery bags from the bus stop, unpacking dreams along the way. The scent of baked asphalt mixed with her sweat as she balanced the load, chatting lightly with Lena to mask the strain. Lena skipped beside her, mimicking her mother's steps. "Mama, can I carry one bag?" Tosha laughed softly. "Sure, baby. Just don't drop the eggs." They were nearing home when the low hum of a patrol car crept up behind them. The patrol car crept to a stop beside them, its engine purring like a predator sizing up prey. Tosha's heart skipped a beat, an instinctive reaction honed from years of navigating a world where her skin color often turned routine moments into threats. She tightened her grip on the grocery bags, the plastic handles digging deeper into her palms, already sore from the morning's labor at the laundromat. Lena's small hand slipped into hers, warm and trusting, as if sensing the shift in the air. Two officers stepped out, both tall and broad-shouldered, their uniforms starched and badges glinting under the relentless sun. They were white, with faces set in hard lines that spoke of authority unchallenged. The older one, with a mustache that looked like it had been trimmed with military precision, eyed Tosha up and down, his gaze lingering a second too long on her worn jeans and faded blouse. The younger officer, barely out of his 20s by the look of him, rested a hand on his belt, fingers brushing the holster as if itching for an excuse. "Ma'am," the older one said, his voice sharp and clipped, like a command rather than a greeting. "Stop right there." Tosha halted immediately, her feet rooting to the cracked sidewalk. She forced a polite smile, the kind she'd practiced in the mirror for situations just like this. Calm, non-threatening, compliant. "Is something wrong, officer?" she asked, keeping her tone even, though her mind raced. They were just walking home, for goodness sake. The bus stop was 2 blocks back, and their apartment building loomed ahead, its peeling paint a familiar sight. What could this possibly be about? The younger officer smirked, exchanging a quick glance with his partner. "Got a report of loitering in the area. You match the description. You got ID on you." "Loitering?" The word hit Tosha like a slap. She frowned, confusion knitting her brows. They'd been moving the whole time, chatting about Lena's dreams, the yellow house that symbolized a life beyond this grind. This wasn't loitering, this was surviving. But she knew better than to argue outright. Past experiences flashed through her mind. The time in high school when she'd been stopped for looking suspicious near a park, or the night her brother had been pulled over for a taillight and ended up with bruises he wouldn't talk about. Racial profiling wasn't a headline to her. It was a lived reality, a shadow that followed her family like an unwelcome companion. She swallowed hard, pushing down the rising bile of anger. Not now. Not with Lena here. Her priority was always the same. Protect her daughter, keep her safe from the ugliness that Tosha had learned to endure. "Of course," Tosha replied softly, shifting the bags to one arm. "Loitering? We just got off the bus, officer. My daughter and I are heading home." She gestured vaguely toward their building, hoping the explanation would diffuse whatever this was. The younger officer stepped closer, his boots scuffing the pavement. "I said, show your ID," he barked, his voice rising unnecessarily, echoing off the nearby buildings. He was close enough now that Tosha could smell the faint scent of coffee on his breath, see the veins bulging in his neck. Why the aggression? She hadn't raised her voice, hadn't moved suddenly. But she recognized the type, the ones who saw her blackness as a challenge, her existence as probable cause. Lena clutched her mother's hand tighter, her little fingers squeezing like a vice. "Mama, what's happening?" she whispered, her voice small and trembling. The girl's wide eyes darted between the officers, her body pressing closer to Tosha's side. Lena had always been perceptive, picking up on tensions that adults tried to hide. At 7, she shouldn't have to know this fear, but here it was, creeping in like the heat waves rising from the asphalt. "It's okay, baby," Tosha murmured, bending slightly to meet her daughter's gaze. She infused her words with as much reassurance as she could muster, though her own pulse thundered in her ears. "Just stay close. Mama's got this." Inside, her thoughts churned. How do I shield her from this? Lena believed in a world where yellow houses meant happiness, where people helped each other. Tosha had fought tooth and nail to preserve that innocence, working double shifts, skipping meals to afford school supplies, whispering bedtime stories of better days. But moments like this chipped away at it, reminding her how fragile their bubble was. She reached slowly into her bag, telegraphing every movement to avoid alarming them. "My wallet's right here," she said, her voice steady despite the knot in her stomach. "I'm pulling it out now." But before her fingers could close around it, the older officer lunged forward. "Hands where I can see them," he shouted, his tone laced with accusation, as if she'd drawn a weapon instead of a wallet. Tosha froze, her arm halfway in the bag. "I am, officer. I'm just—" The younger one didn't wait. He yanked the grocery bag from her other hand with a violent tug, the plastic ripping as apples, rice, and a loaf of bread spilled across the pavement. The items rolled into the gutter, dirted and ruined, hard-earned necessities wasted in an instant. "Hey, please, you don't have to do that," Tosha protested, her composure cracking. Fear surged through her, hot and immediate. This was escalating too fast, too senselessly. "Stop resisting," the older officer bellowed, grabbing her arm and twisting it behind her back with brutal efficiency. Pain lanced up her shoulder, a sharp twist that made her gasp. She hadn't resisted, she'd complied every step. But the narrative was already set in their minds. She was the threat, the one who needed subduing. Lena screamed, a high-pitched wail that cut through the air like a siren. "She's not resisting. Please stop." The girl's face crumpled, tears welling as she tugged at Tosha's skirt. Passers-by in cars slowed, windows cracking open for a glimpse, but no one stopped. No one intervened. The world kept turning, indifferent to their plight. Radio chatter crackled from the patrol car, static bursts of codes and confirmations, a backdrop to the chaos. The younger officer shoved Tosha forward, slamming her against the hood of the car. Her cheek pressed into the hot metal, the surface burning against her skin like a brand. She cried out, the sound muffled, her body pinned under his weight. His knee dug into her back, grinding against her spine. "Stay down," he growled, his breath hot on her neck. Tosha's vision blurred with tears, not just from pain, but from the humiliation, the injustice. "Why?" Her mind screamed. "We're just walking home." Memories flooded her, her mother's warnings about the talk, the one every black parent gave their kids. "Keep your hands visible, say. Yes, sir. Don't run." She'd given Lena a softened version, but now it was real, unfolding in broad daylight. Protect Lena, she thought desperately. Don't let her see this break me. Lena's sobs grew frantic, her small body shaking. She clung to Tosha's leg, but the older officer reached down, trying to pull her away. "Kid, back off." "No, let my mama go," Lena yelled, her voice raw with terror. The fear in her eyes was a dagger to Tosha's heart. The pressure increased, the knee pressing harder, stealing her breath. The radio blared again, in different voices discussing backups or codes. The street felt empty, the sun mocking in its brightness. Tosha whispered through gritted teeth, "Lena, baby, it's okay. Just stay calm." But Lena couldn't. The sight of her mother pinned, hurting, was too much. With a surge of desperate courage, she wrenched free from the officer's loose grip. Her tiny shoes slapped against the asphalt as she bolted away, throat burning from screams. "Help! The police are beating my mother." Tosha twisted her head, catching a glimpse of her daughter running toward the distant rumble of motorcycles down the street. Her heart pounded in terror and pride. Lena, so small, seeking help in a world that had failed them. "Go, baby," she thought. "Find someone. Anyone." As Lena's figure grew smaller, her cries echoing, the officers hesitated for a split second, their focus divided. But the damage was done. The shadows of suspicion had deepened into something darker, and the rumble in the distance promised change, or confrontation. Across the street from the unfolding nightmare, the Red Line diner hummed with a different kind of energy. The parking lot was a sea of chrome and black, Harleys lined up like loyal steeds under the midday sun. The Iron Saints Motorcycle Club had rolled in an hour earlier, a dozen strong, for their weekly pit stop after a long ride through the backroads. Leather vests emblazoned with the club's emblem, a stylized saint's cross encircled by iron chains, hung over broad shoulders, weathered by miles and memories. Tattoos snaked across arms and necks, eagles in flight, skulls grinning defiantly, dates and names etched in faded ink as tributes to the lost. Inside the diner, the air was thick with the scent of greasy burgers, black coffee, and cigarette smoke wafting from the outdoor patio. Laughter boomed from a corner booth where the group clustered, plates piled high with fries and half-eaten sandwiches. Bear, a mountain of a man with a bushy red beard and hands like ham hocks, slapped the table as he finished a story. And then this fool, Tank here, tries to outrun that storm on his old hog. Ended up looking like a drowned rat at the next gas station. Tank, lean and wiry with a scar running down his cheek from a long-ago bar fight, chuckled, shaking his head. "Hey, at least I made it. You were the one whining about your precious paint job getting speckled." The others roared, clinking mugs in mock toasts. It was their ritual, banter that masked the bonds forged in tougher times. Charity runs for veterans, standing up for the overlooked in their rough-edged community. They weren't angels, but they had a code. Protect your own, and sometimes that extended beyond the club. At the head of the table sat Cal Walker, the club's president. Tall and solid, with a weathered beard streaked grey and calm blue eyes that missed nothing, he exuded the quiet authority of a man who'd seen too much. His leather vest bore the most patches, President's rocker, a faded American flag, and a small, discreet ribbon for awareness, a nod to the sister he'd lost years ago. She'd been caught in a domestic nightmare, beaten by a partner the system had failed to stop. Cal had arrived too late that night, the sirens wailing as he held her hand in the hospital. It had changed him, turned his restlessness into purpose. Now, at 45, he led the Iron Saints not just on the road, but in quiet acts of vigil, escorting women from abusive homes, fundraising for shelters. He sipped his coffee black, listening to the ribbing with a faint smile, his mind always half on the horizon. The diner's screen door creaked open occasionally, letting in bursts of hot air, but nothing prepared them for the sound that shattered the easy afternoon. A child's desperate cry pierced the chatter like a knife through silk. "Help! The police are beating my mother. Heads turned. Forks paused midair. The banter died as quickly as a flame snuffed out. Outside, a small figure barreled toward them. A barefoot girl in a pink t-shirt, no more than 7, her black skin glistening with sweat and tears, cheeks streaked like war paint. She stumbled across the parking lot, small fists pumping, her sobs raw and unrelenting. "Please, somebody help my mommy. They're hurting her." Confusion rippled through the group. Bear blinked, his massive frame frozen. "What the? Is that a kid?" Tank leaned forward, squinting against the sun. A few others stood, chairs scraping back, their protective instincts kicking in like muscle memory. This wasn't a prank. The terror in her voice was too real, too piercing. Cal was on his feet first, his chair toppling backward with a clatter. He moved with purposeful strides, crossing the lot in seconds, his boots crunching gravel. The others followed in his wake, a wall of leather forming behind him. He dropped to one knee in front of the girl, bringing himself to her level, his voice steady and low, like calming a spooked horse. Hey, slow down, sweetheart. What's your name? What happened?" The child, Lena, though he didn't know it yet, gasped for air, her chest heaving in ragged bursts. Tears carved fresh paths down her round cheeks, and her pink shirt was smudged with dust from the run. She pointed back toward the corner, her arm trembling. "Elena," she managed between sobs. "The police, they stopped us. Mama was just walking home with groceries, and they said loitering, but we weren't. They grabbed her, twisted her arm, pushed her down on the car. She's bleeding. Please, you have to help." Cal's jaw tightened, a storm brewing in those calm blue eyes. He glanced at the direction she pointed, the distant flash of patrol lights visible, now through the haze. Anger simmered in his gut, not the hot, reckless kind, but the cold resolve born from his sister's memory. A woman being manhandled, a child witnessing it? In broad daylight? It hit too close, stirring the ghosts he carried. Behind him, the club's confusion hardened into fury. Bear cracked his knuckles, muttering, "Cops? Beating on a mom?" Tank's scar twitched as he nodded, his lean frame tensing like a coiled spring. The others shifted, murmurs rippling. "We gotta check this out. No way we're sitting this one." Cal placed a gentle hand on Lena's shoulder, light as a feather, his calloused fingers steadying her. "Okay, Lena, you're safe here. Where exactly? Show me." She pointed again, more urgently, her sobs easing slightly under his calm gaze. "Over there, around the corner. Please hurry." They had her on the ground. That was all he needed. Cal stood, his presence commanding the group without a shout. "Bear, Tank, on me. We're rolling out." He turned to the rest, his voice brooking no argument. "The others stay here with the kid. Keep her safe, get her some water. No one touches her." Bear nodded, his massive form already heading to his bike. "You got it, Prez." Tank fell in step, slinging his helmet on. The rest of the Saints formed a protective circle around Lena, one of them, a grizzled vet named Jax, kneeling down with a soft smile. "Hey, kiddo, want some soda? We'll watch out for you." Engines fired up in a symphony of thunder, the Harleys growling to life like awakened beasts. The ground vibrated underfoot, sending tremors through the diner lot. Cal swung onto his bike, a customized black beast with chrome accents that caught the sun like fire. He revved the throttle once, the roar echoing down the street, a warning and a promise. Bear's massive chopper bellowed beside him, Tank's sleeker ride purring in harmony. Exhaust fumes mingled with the diner's grease, the air thick with tension and purpose. They peeled out in formation, tires screeching as they cut through traffic. Cars swerved, horns blared, but the trio thundered on, weaving with practiced precision. The wind whipped at their vests, adrenaline surging like fuel in their veins. Cal's mind raced ahead, visions of his sister overlapping with this unknown woman. He wouldn't be too late this time. The corner approached, the patrol car coming into view, its lights flashing lazily. They slammed to a stop, bikes skidding in unison. What they saw fueled the fire. A black woman pinned against the hood, one officer's knee in her back, the other shouting nonsense about resistance. Blood trickled from her lip, groceries scattered like forgotten dreams. The woman's eyes met Cal's for a split second. Pain, fear, but defiance too. Cal dismounted first, his voice booming across the block. "Hey, get off her." The confrontation had begun. The Harleys screeched to a halt in a cloud of dust and exhaust, the Engine's growl cutting off abruptly like a held breath. Cal dismounted first, his boots hitting the pavement with a thud that echoed the pounding in his chest. Bear and Tank flanked him, their massive frames dismounting in sync, forming an unyielding wall of leather and resolve. The scene before them was a snapshot of injustice frozen in the harsh sunlight. Tosha pinned face down on the patrol car's hood, her cheek pressed into the scorching metal, blood trickling from a split lip. One officer's knee dug into her back, his weight bearing down with unnecessary force, while the other loomed nearby, barking empty commands about resistance. Scattered groceries lay like casualties, apples bruised in the gutter, rice grains crunching underfoot. Tosha's eyes flicked up, meeting Cal's in that fleeting moment. Raw pain, deep humiliation, but a spark of unyielding defiance that mirrored his own buried scars. Cal's voice boomed across the block, deep and commanding, slicing through the tension like a revved engine. "Hey, get off her, now." The officers spun around, startled, their faces flushing with a mix of surprise and indignation. The younger one, still pinning Tosha, straightened slightly, his hand instinctively dropping to his holster. "This is police business," he snapped, his voice cracking just a hair under the unexpected scrutiny. "Step back, all of you, or you'll be under arrest for interference." The older officer positioned himself between them, puffing out his chest in a show of authority, his mustache twitching with barely contained rage. His fingers hovered near his belt, thumb brushing the snap on his gun. "You heard him. Back off. This doesn't concern you." But it did. To Cal, it concerned everyone with a shred of decency. He took a measured step forward, unflinching, his blue eyes locking onto the officers like a laser sight. Bear and Tank spread out beside him, not advancing but holding ground. Bear's arms crossed over his barrel chest, Tank's lean form coiled like a spring. They didn't draw weapons, they didn't need to. Their presence alone was a force, leather vests gleaming under the sun, tattoos telling stories of battles won and losses endured. The air thickened, charged with the scent of hot asphalt and lingering exhaust, the distant hum of traffic underscoring the standoff like a tense soundtrack. Tosha gasped beneath the pressure, her body aching from the rough handling. The knee in her back felt like a vice, squeezing the air from her lungs, but worse was the humiliation. The way it stripped her bare in front of strangers, reducing her to a statistic in someone else's power play. She thought of Lena, her brave girl who'd run for help, and prayed she was safe. Pain radiated from her twisted arm, but she bit back a cry, refusing to give them the satisfaction. This wasn't new. It was the echo of a system that saw her as less, that profiled and punished without cause. Yet here, in this moment, something shifted. The rumble of allies had arrived, disrupting the script. From the diner lot down the street, faint sobs carried on the breeze. Lena's, muffled but piercing, a reminder of the innocents caught in the crossfire. Cal heard them, and it fueled the quiet fury simmering in his veins. His sister's face flashed in his mind. Bruised, broken, the system that should have protected her turning a blind eye. He'd vowed never to stand idle again. The Iron Saints' code wasn't written in bylaws. It was etched in their souls. Protect the vulnerable, challenge the bullies, no matter the badge or the suit. His voice remained steady, low and unyielding, cutting through the officer's bluster. Beating a woman in front of her kid? That ain't police work. That's abuse. The younger officer's face reddened, his grip on Tosha easing just a fraction as doubt crept in. She's resisting arrest. We had probable cause. Loitering, suspicious behavior. Cal pointed calmly at Tosha, his fingers steady as steel. Look at her. She's bleeding from the mouth, got bruises forming on her arms. Groceries spilled everywhere, like you were raiding a damn picnic. What threat does a single mom with a kid pose to you two? The standoff intensified, words hanging heavy in the air. Passers-by, who had earlier averted their eyes, now slowed to a stop. A few pulled over, car doors opening as curiosity turned to concern. Phones emerged from pockets, held aloft like modern torches, recording, streaming, capturing every angle. An older woman from a nearby stoop called out, "What's going on here?" A young man in a delivery uniform jogged closer, his device already rolling. The crowd gathered slowly at first, then swelled. Neighbors peeking from windows, drivers honking in solidarity or confusion. Whispers rippled. Cops roughing up a lady? Those bikers just showed up. The balance shifted. The officer's authority no longer absolute under the gaze of a dozen lenses. Tosha felt the change, a subtle lessening of the weight on her back. Humiliation burned in her chest, tears stinging her eyes, but she drew strength from the distant cries. Lena's voice, now mixed with reassuring murmurs from the other bikers. She wasn't alone anymore. These strangers, these rough-edged men on motorcycles, had answered a child's plea. It defied everything she'd been taught about the world, where help rarely came without strings. The older officer glanced around, his defensiveness cracking as he noted the growing audience. His hand hovered near the radio on his shoulder, fingers twitching. "Sir, I said step back," he repeated, but his voice wavered now, the command lacking its earlier bite. Sweat beaded on his forehead, not just from the heat. Bear shifted his weight, his deep rumble adding weight to Cal's words. "You heard the man. Let her up. We've got witnesses now, plenty of 'em." Tank nodded silently, his scar pulling taut as he scanned the scene, ready but restrained. The biker's code held firm. No first strikes, but unyielding defense. Cal's quiet fury anchored them, a controlled storm rooted in that long-ago hospital room, where inaction had cost him everything. He wouldn't escalate, but he wouldn't back down. "The only mistake here," Cal said, his tone even but laced with steel, "is thinking nobody's watching. Let her go, or this gets a whole lot messier for you." The younger officer's eyes darted to the crowd, phones glinting like accusatory eyes. He muttered under his breath, "This is bullshit," but the fire in his posture dimmed. The older one hesitated longer, weighing the optics, the viral potential of bikers defending a black woman from police. Sirens wailed faintly in the distance, perhaps backup, but the moment stretched. Finally, with a grudging nod, they stepped back, the knee lifting from Tosha's back. She gasped for air, pushing herself up slowly, clutching her side where ribs protested. The world spun for a second, but she stood, dignity reclaiming its place amid the pain. Cal knelt beside her, his presence a shield. "Ma'am, you okay?" Her lip trembled, voice hoarse. "They said loitering. We were just walking home." Cal's jaw clenched tighter. "We saw enough." The clash of worlds had tilted, justice teetering on the edge of the gathering storm. The officer's retreat hung in the air like a fragile truce, the younger one's face twisted in resentment as he holstered his hand, the older one scanning the crowd with a flicker of unease. Tosha pushed herself upright, her body protesting with sharp twinges, ribs bruised, arm throbbing, the metallic taste of blood on her lip. She stood on shaky legs, dignity reclaiming its space amid the chaos, her eyes locking onto Cal's with a mix of wariness and relief. The bikers held their ground, a silent bulwark, while the gathering onlookers murmured, phones still raised like silent judges. Sirens wailed in the distance, growing louder, a chorus of authority closing in. Backup units, 2 more patrol cars, screeched around the corner, lights flashing in erratic pulses that painted the street in red and blue. Officers spilled out, hands on belts, assessing the scene with trained caution. But this wasn't the isolated stop the original pair had anticipated. The landscape had shifted. A dozen witnesses clustered on the sidewalks, videos capturing every angle, the bikers' imposing presence turning what might have been a quick dismissal into a powder keg. Whispers spread. "Those guys on bikes just showed up." She was just walking with her kid. The air buzzed with tension, the heat of the day amplifying the sweat on brows and the crackle of radios. A supervising officer emerged from the lead car, a stern woman in her 40s with a no-nonsense bun and a badge that read Sergeant Ramirez. Her eyes swept the tableau, Tosha clutching her side, bloodied but standing, the 2 officers defensive, badges glinting defiantly, Cal and his crew, arms crossed unflinching. She held up a hand for calm, her voice cutting through the din like a referee's whistle. "Everyone stand down. What's the situation here?" The younger officer jumped in first, his words tumbling out in a rush of justification. "Sarge, we stopped her for loitering," matched a report. She resisted, reached into her bag suspiciously. "We had to subdue." "Bull," Cal interjected, his tone even but edged with steel. He stepped forward slightly, gesturing to Tosha. "We rolled up and saw them slamming her against the car, knee in her back. For what? Walking home with groceries?" Kid ran to us screaming for help. "She's got a split lip, bruises. That's not subduing, that's assault." Bear nodded, his deep voice rumbling in support. "We got here just in time. No resistance from what we saw. Just 2 badges throwing their weight around." Tank added quietly, "And half the block's got it on video now." Sergeant Ramirez's gaze hardened as she turned to the crowd, noting the phones, some streaming live, comments already flooding in from unseen viewers. She pulled the original officers aside, her questions sharp and probing. "ID check turned physical? Explain the force." Witnesses chimed in unprompted, the older woman from the stoop describing the spilled bags, the delivery guy recounting Tosha's comm compliance. Videos were offered up, played back on screens, grainy but damning, showing the grab, the twist, the shove. The officers' defensiveness crumbled under the weight of evidence, their stories fracturing with inconsistencies. Internal Affairs was radioed in, the call crackling over the airwaves. Ramirez's decision came swift. Cuff them. Pending investigation. The younger officer protested, face paling, but his partner went quiet, resignation settling in as their own handcuffs clicked shut. They were led to a backup car, the irony thick, the protectors now the detained. Justice, in that moment, unfolded not with fanfare, but with the quiet click of restraints, the scene transforming from confrontation to accountability under the scrutiny of eyes and lenses. As the tension ebbed, Tosh's legs nearly buckled, adrenaline fading into exhaustion. But then, a small figure broke from the diner lot, escorted by Jax and a couple of other saints. "Mama!" Lena's voice pierced the air, her tiny form sprinting across the street, barefoot and tear-streaked. Tosha dropped to her knees, arms opening wide, and Lena crashed into her, burying her face in her mother's neck. The embrace was fierce, desperate. Lena's sobs muffled against Tosha's torn blouse, Tosha's tears silent, but hot on her daughter's hair. "Oh baby, you're okay. You were so brave." Lena pulled back slightly, her round eyes wide with a mix of fear and awe. "I ran to them, Mama. The bikers. They came." Tosha nodded, her voice choked. "I know, sweetie. You saved us." She held Lena close, inhaling the familiar scent of her shampoo mixed with sweat, the world narrowing to this one point of safety amid the chaos. Cal approached slowly, shrugging off his leather vest with its array of patches. The president's rocker, the faded ribbon that whispered of his losses. He draped it over Tosha's shoulders gently, the heavy material warm from his body, covering the rips in her shirt and offering a shield against the prying eyes. "Nobody lays a hand on a woman in front of me," he said quietly, his blue eyes softening as he looked down at them. It was more than a gesture. It was a vow, rooted in the code that had pulled him from his own darkness. Lena peered up at him, her small hand reaching out tentatively. "Thank you, mister. You heard me." Cal knelt to her level, a rare smile cracking his weathered face. "Name's Cal, kiddo. And yeah, we heard you. Loud and clear." He ruffled her hair lightly, the tenderness belying his tough exterior. Tosha met his gaze over Lena's head, her lip trembling as gratitude swelled. "I didn't think anyone would come. Thank you, all of you." Tears spilled freely now, not from pain, but from the unexpected humanity in this clash of worlds. Bear and Tank hovered nearby, offering nods of solidarity, their banter silenced by the moment's weight. The broader implications rippled outward like waves from a stone. Phones continued to record, live streams buzzing with hashtags. Hashtag bikers versus brutality, hashtag cry for help. Comments poured in. "This is going viral. Where's the justice?" News vans would arrive soon, reporters scenting a story of unlikely heroes. White bikers defending a black mother from police overreach. Protests might spark, calls for reform echoing through the city. The Iron Saints fundraiser was already whispered among the club, a quiet plan to support Tosha's recovery. But for now, the group began to disperse. Witnesses drifting away with promises to share footage, backup officers wrapping the scene, the cuffed pair driven off under scrutiny. Cal signaled to Bear and Tank, engines rumbling back to life as they prepared to roll out. Tosha stood with Lena, Cal's vest still around her, watching as the bikers mounted up. The fallout loomed, investigations, media frenzy, societal reckonings. But in this breath, there was a fragile hope. The rumble faded down the street, leaving echoes of change in its wake. That night, As the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in streaks of orange and purple, the story exploded across screens and airwaves. News outlets replayed the grainy cell phone footage on loop. The bikers' thunderous arrival, Cal's commanding voice cutting through the chaos, the officers stepping back under the weight of witnesses. Headlines screamed from every channel. Bikers confront police brutality. Child's cry sparks heroic intervention. Local stations led with dramatic reenactments, anchors intoning gravely about the unlikely alliance between a motorcycle club and a single mother. National networks picked it up by morning, framing it as a symbol of fractured trust in law enforcement. White bikers defend black mom from cops. What this means for America. Social media ignited, hashtags trending like wildfire. Hashtag cry for help, hashtag Iron Saints heroes, hashtag end brutality now. Pundits debated on talk shows, some praising the bikers as vigilante saviors, others decrying them as outlaws meddling in police affairs. Controversy swirled. Were the officers rogue or following protocol? Was this racial profiling laid bare, or an overblown misunderstanding? Protests erupted outside the precinct by dusk, a swelling crowd of activists, neighbors, and curious onlookers waving signs under the glow of streetlights. No justice, no peace, chants echoed off the brick walls, mixed with calls for body cam reforms and accountability. Supporters of the police countered with their own gatherings, blue line flags fluttering, voices raised in defense of law and order. Fights nearly broke out, tensions simmering like the day's leftover heat. The two officers were suspended pending investigation, their names leaked online, fueling doxing and death threats from both sides. Public reaction was a mosaic. Outrage from communities long weary of systemic bias, admiration for the bikers' gutsy stand, and skepticism from those who saw the club as roughnecks with their own checkered pasts. Editorials poured in, one viral op-ed declaring, "In a divided nation, a child's plea bridged worlds we thought irreconcilable." For Tosha and Lena, the media storm was a distant roar, overshadowed by the personal toll that crashed over them like a wave. They were whisked away that evening to a safe house on the city's outskirts, a modest apartment arranged by a local advocacy group specializing in police misconduct cases. The space was sparse but clean, beige walls, a pull-out couch, a kitchenette stocked with basics. Tosha sat on the edge of the bed, Lena curled in her lap, as a social worker explained the relocation. Just until things cool down. Reporters are circling, and we don't want any backlash finding you. Legal aid arrived soon after. A sharp-eyed attorney named Maria from the ACLU affiliate, outlining their options. Filing a civil suit, cooperating with internal affairs. "You've got a strong case," Maria said, her voice firm but kind. "Videos, witnesses, the biker's testimony. This could lead to real change." Community support flooded in quietly at first. Neighbors dropping off meals at the advocacy center. A GoFundMe page springing up overnight with donations for medical bills and lost wages. But recovery was no straight path. Tosha's body healed slowly, bruises fading to yellow, ribs aching with every breath. But her mind replayed the incident in loops. Late at night, staring at the ceiling, she reflected on the deeper scars. The systemic racism that had turned a simple walk home into a nightmare. It wasn't just those officers. It was the profiling she'd faced since childhood, the random stops, the assumptions that her blackness meant suspicion. "Why us?" she'd whispered to herself, tears silent. We were just existing. Therapy sessions started via video, a counselor helping her unpack the humiliation, the fear of what Lena had witnessed. It's okay to be angry, the counselor said, but channel it for her. Lena's trauma manifested in quieter, heartbreaking ways. Nightmares plagued her, waking screams of "Mama, they're coming," that jolted Tosha from sleep. The girl clung closer during the day, drawing pictures of monsters in uniforms, her once bright dreams of yellow houses overshadowed by shadows. "Will they find us here?" Lena asked one evening, her small voice trembling as she hugged a donated teddy bear. Tosha held her tight, murmuring reassurances she half believed. Play therapy began, a specialist using dolls to reenact the scene, helping Lena process the terror. Yet glimmers of resilience shone through, Lena's eyes lighting up at stories of brave kids in books, her tentative questions about the motorcycle angels who had saved them. The Iron Saints didn't fade into the background. They rode into it with purpose. Back at their clubhouse, a weathered garage on the edge of town, Cal called a meeting that night, the air thick with beer and determination. "That woman's cry. The kids? We don't ignore that," he said, his voice steady, blue eyes scanning the circle of vests and tattoos. His motivation ran deep, rooted in that cry for help philosophy born from his sister's tragedy. He'd built the club around it, not just rides and brotherhood, but quiet interventions, protecting the overlooked, answering pleas others dismissed. "We're organizing a fundraiser," he declared. "Raffle bikes, barbecue, proceeds for her recovery, legal fees." Bear and Tank nodded, the group mobilizing with efficiency honed from charity runs. Posters went up online and in bars, the event dubbed Ride for Justice. Visits started subtly, Cal dropping by the safe house with a bag of toys for Lena, his massive frame softening as he knelt to her level. "Heard you like drawing," he said, handing over crayons and paper. Lena beamed, sketching a wobbly motorcycle under a yellow sun. Tosha watched from the doorway, gratitude mingling with caution. These were strangers, after all, from a world of engines and leather. But Cal's quiet presence grew on her. Over coffee one afternoon, he shared snippets of his story. "Lost my sister to something similar. Abuse the system ignored. A cry for help's universal. Doesn't see color or badges." His words resonated, echoing Tosha's own battles. The club brought more. Bear with homemade chili, Tank fixing a leaky faucet, their banter lightening the air. Bonds deepened in those visits. Lena giggling at Cal's helmet hair, Tosha opening up about her laundromat grind, the systemic walls she'd hit. "Never thought help would come on Harleys," she admitted one evening, a tentative smile breaking through. Cal chuckled softly. "Life's full of surprises." The fundraiser loomed, promises of community healing, but hints of long-term change whispered. Tosha eyeing job listings at a center for single moms, Lena's nightmares easing, the Saints planning more outreach. Echoes of outrage rippled outward, forging unlikely ties that promised to endure. A month had passed since the chaos on that sun-baked street, the echoes of sirens and outrage fading into a quieter rhythm of rebuilding. Tosha stood in the doorway of the East Side Community Center, her hands no longer raw from detergent, but steady as she clutched a stack of flyers. The job offer had come unexpectedly, a position coordinating support groups for single mothers, born from the advocacy group's connections and her own story's ripple effects. "You've been through it," the director had said during the interview, her eyes kind. "You can help others navigate." Tosha had hesitated at first, doubts whispering that she wasn't ready, that her bruises, physical and otherwise, still lingered. But she accepted, stepping into the role with a tentative resolve that grew stronger each day. Empowerment bloomed in small victories. Mornings began with therapy sessions over video. The counselor, a warm woman named Dr. Ellis, guiding her through the layers of trauma. "Feel the anger, Tosha," Dr. Ellis urged in one session, her voice steady through the screen. "It's not just about that day. It's the system that let it happen." Tosha nodded, unpacking the racial undercurrents that had haunted her life. The stops, the stares, the assumptions that chipped away at her worth. Sessions turned to rebuilding confidence. Journaling affirmations, role-playing boundaries, visualizing a future unchained from fear. "You're not defined by what they did," Dr. Ellis said. "You're the one who stood up." Tosha felt it shifting inside her, a quiet strength emerging, like threads weaving back together. At the center, she led her first group, sharing snippets of her story to nods of recognition from other women. "We're not alone," she'd say, her voice gaining firmness. Helping them file paperwork, connect to resources, or just listen. It mirrored her own healing, turning pain into purpose. Lena tagged along after school, coloring in the corner, her presence a reminder of why Tosha pushed forward. Community ties deepened like roots taking hold, the Iron Saints becoming unexpected fixtures in their new routine. The fundraiser had been a roaring success. A barbecue at a local park, bikes gleaming in rows, grills sizzling with burgers donated by club allies. Thousands raised for Tosha's legal fees and recovery, but more than money, it forged connections. Now, the bikers visited the center regularly, leather vests a stark contrast to the colorful posters on the walls. Bear lumbered in with boxes of canned goods and diapers, his bushy beard hiding a grin as mothers thanked him. Tank, ever the fixer, tinkered with a faulty air conditioner, his scar pulling as he bantered with the kids. "Uncle Tank's got it," he'd say, eliciting giggles. Cal led the charge, his calm presence a anchor. He'd swing by with toys for the children, stuffed animals, puzzles, art supplies, his blue eyes softening at the sight of Lena. One afternoon, she perched on a stool in the center's play area, crayons scattering as she drew furiously. "Look, Mr. Cal," she exclaimed, holding up a page. 3 motorcycles roaring under a bright yellow sun, a woman and girl holding hands nearby. "That's you saving us." Cal knelt, folding his massive frame to examine it closely. "That's something special, kiddo. Mind if I keep it?" Lena nodded eagerly, and he tucked it into his vest pocket like a treasure. Over coffee in the break room, he shared stories of the club's charitable side, escorting women to court for restraining orders, runs for veteran shelters, holiday toy drives. "We ain't saints by name only," he said quietly, stirring his mug. "Started after my sister. Well, you know. Figured if we can answer one cry, why not more?" Tosha listened, the walls between them thinning. Interactions wove warmth into the days. Lena teaching Bear to color within the lines, the big man pretending to struggle. Tank showing the kids card tricks, his lean hands deft despite the scars. Yet subtle conflicts threaded through the healing, like knots in the weave. Media scrutiny lingered, reporters digging into the Saints' past. Old arrests for bar fights, rumors of rival club skirmishes from years ago. A local news segment aired one evening, a slick anchor questioning, heroes or hellraisers? The Iron Saints' checkered history. Online trolls amplified it, comments flooding. Bikers playing savior, give me a break. At the center, whispers reached Tosha from a few wary mothers. Are they safe around the kids? She defended them instinctively. They saved us. But doubts crept in during quiet moments. Was she relying too much on others? Her life had been a solo battle, raising Lena after her partner's abandonment, scraping by without handouts. Trust didn't come easy. What if this support vanished, leaving her exposed again? One rainy afternoon, as thunder rumbled outside the center, the tension surfaced in dialogue. Cal sat across from Tosha in the empty group room, rain pattering against the windows like unspoken words. Lena napped nearby, her drawing clutched in her small hand. Saw that news piece, Tosha said, her voice measured, stirring tea she didn't drink. Your club's past. It doesn't bother you? Cal leaned back, his weathered face thoughtful. Bothers me plenty. We ain't perfect. Made mistakes, paid for 'em. But that don't erase the good. Media loves the dirt, ignores the rides we do for kids like Lena. He paused, eyes meeting hers. You doubting us? Or yourself? Tosha sighed, vulnerability cracking her facade. Both, maybe. I've always handled things alone. Depending on people. It scares me. What if you'll ride off one day? He nodded slowly, the quiet fury from that first day replaced by empathy. Trust's a risk, yeah. But hope? That's betting on the good in folks. Your girl ran to us, 'cause she believed someone would help. Maybe it's time you did too. His words hung, emotional depth settling like the rain. Tosha glanced at Lena, her chest tightening with a mix of fear and warmth. Hope, she echoed softly. Haven't had much of that. Cal smiled faintly. It's growing now, thread by thread. As the storm eased, so did the knot in her heart, foreshadowing a tapestry of lasting change. As autumn leaves began to turn, casting the east side in shades of gold and crimson, the threads of healing tightened into something more enduring. Tosha found herself drawn deeper into the orbit of the Iron Saints, her connection with Cal evolving like a slow-burning ember. Part mentorship, part subtle romance that neither rushed to name. It started with shared coffees at the community center, conversations stretching from practical advice on her civil suit to quieter confessions under the hum of fluorescent lights. You've got fire in you, Cal told her one evening, his blue eyes steady as he leaned against the doorframe. Reminds me of my sister, strong, even when the world's pushing back. Tosha felt a warmth she hadn't known in years, his presence a steady anchor amid her rebuilding. No grand gestures, just stolen glances during group sessions, his hand brushing hers as he passed a mug. It was mentorship in his guidance, helping her navigate the legal maze with club contacts, but romance in the way his voice softened when he asked about her day, or how he'd linger after visits, the air charged with unspoken possibility. Club events became the backdrop for their integration, symbols of a family pieced together from unlikely parts. The Saints hosted a full charity ride, a convoy of Harleys rumbling through town to raise funds for local shelters. Tosha and Lena joined for the first time, not as outsiders but participants. Lena perched excitedly on the back of Cal's bike for a short parade loop, her small arms wrapped around his waist, helmet oversized but secure. Like flying, Mama, she squealed afterward, cheeks flushed as the group gathered at a park for a potluck. Tosha helped serve plates, laughing with the other women, some partners of club members, others from the center, who shared stories of their own struggles. Bear hoisted Lena onto his shoulders for a better view of her impromptu bike show, his booming laugh echoing as Tank performed wheelies to cheers. Integration felt natural here. Tosha organizing a booth for center donations, Lena trading drawings for stickers from the riders. Cal watched from afar, a faint smile cracking his weathered face, the bond between them deepening in these shared spaces. Her hand finding his during a quiet moment by the fire pit, fingers intertwining like a promise. Societal reflections rippled through the city, the incident's full-out reshaping narratives in ways that extended beyond Tosha's world. The investigation concluded with damning clarity. The two officers suspended indefinitely, their badges tarnished by body cam footage and witness accounts that exposed excessive force and racial bias. Policy changes followed swiftly. Mandatory de-escalation training for the precinct, community oversight boards expanded, body cams required on all shifts. Headlines shifted from outrage to analysis, from confrontation to reform, how one cry sparked change. Broader themes emerged in editorials and town halls, cross-racial alliances challenging the divides that had long fractured society. The image of white bikers defending a black mother became a touchstone, dismantling stereotypes. The saints not as outlaws but protectors, Tosha not as victim but advocate. It's about seeing past the leather, past the skin, Cal mused during a radio interview the club agreed to, his voice gravelly but earnest. We all bleed the same. Tosha spoke at a panel, her confidence rebuilt, highlighting how such alliances could heal systemic wounds. Stereotypes keep us apart, she said, her words steady. But that day they broke. The city buzzed with dialogue, protests evolving into dialogues, unlikely friendships forming in the wake. From Lena's perspective, growth unfolded like a flower unfurling after a storm, her fears receding under the inspiration of those angels on motorcycles. Nightmares still visited occasionally, shadows of uniforms and shouts pulling her from sleep, but they lessened with each therapy session and story shared. They're not all bad, she'd whisper to her teddy bear, echoing Dr. Ellis's gentle reframing. Overcoming fear came in milestones, drawing fewer monsters, more heroes on bikes, venturing outside without clutching Tosha's hand quite so tight. The saints fueled her inspiration, Cal's tales of rides for good causes painting them as guardians, engines roaring like thunder against injustice. Angels ride motorcycles, Mama, Lena declared one morning over breakfast, her eyes bright with conviction. They hear cries and come fast. Tosha smiled, heart swelling at her daughter's resilience, the way trauma was transforming into empowerment. Lena's growth shone in small acts, helping at the center by passing out crayons to other kids, or boldly asking Bear about his tattoos, giggling at his exaggerated stories. She began to see the world not as a place of lurking dangers, but one where help could arrive on two wheels, bridging gaps she was too young to fully name. The chapter culminated in a pivotal moment during a club ride to a nearby lake, the air crisp with fall's promise. Tosha rode with Cal, her arms around him, wind whipping her braids as the convoy thundered down winding roads. Lena safe with Jax in a sidecar rig, her laughter carrying over the engines. The group stopped at a scenic overlook, bikes parked in a circle like a protective ring. As the sun dipped low, casting golden light over the water, Cal pulled Tosha aside. This ride, it's about moving forward, he said softly, his hand in hers. Together, if you'll have it. She nodded, a subtle spark igniting, while Lena ran up, thrusting a new drawing into his hands. Angels on bikes circling a yellow house. The group gathered around a bonfire that night, stories flowing, Bear's tall tales, Tank's quiet wisdom, reinforcing themes of protection and community. Laughter mingled with the crackle of flames. Tosha and Lena nestled in the fold, the rumble of engines a lullaby of hope. In that circle, worlds once clashed now converged, riding toward a tomorrow built on trust and unexpected grace. The crisp bite of late fall hung in the air as Tosha stood outside the East Side Community Center, her breath visible in the morning chill. Months had passed since that searing afternoon when Lena's cry had pierced the suburban quiet, yet the transformation felt like a lifetime. Tosha thrived now, her role at the center expanding into a full-time position as program director. She led workshops, secured grants, and mentored mothers with a confidence that radiated like sunlight through cracked pavement. Therapy had woven her scars into strength, each session with Dr. Ellis reinforcing her worth beyond the labels. Single mom, black woman, victim, that once confined her. The civil suit against the officers settled quietly, funds easing the financial strain, but it was the community's embrace that truly anchored her. Neighbors stopped by with casseroles, mothers from the center shared childcare, and the Iron Saints remained a constant, their leather vests a familiar sight amid the center's colorful chaos. Lena, too, had blossomed, her nightmares fading into rare shadows. The 7-year-old's resilience shone in her laughter, her drawings no longer of monsters, but of heroes, bikes, suns, and yellow houses filling her sketchbook. Therapy had helped her name her fears, transforming them into stories of courage. She'd taken to helping at the center, passing out snacks to younger kids with a seriousness that made Tosha's heart swell. The Yellow House dream, once a fragile wish, had become a beacon of hope realized. Not a literal home yet, but a sense of safety and belonging built from unexpected allies. Lena's trust in the world, dented by that day, was mending, stitched together by the kindness of strangers who rode in like thunder. The Iron Saints' latest event, a toy drive for the center's holiday party, brought the club back in full force, their bikes lining the lot like a chrome honor guard. Cal, Bear, Tank, and the others unloaded boxes of dolls, puzzles, and action figures, their banter mingling with the chatter of families. Tosha oversaw the chaos, directing volunteers with a steady hand, while Lena darted among them, her pink sneakers a blur. As the day wound down, Lena tugged Cal's sleeve, her small face solemn. "I made something for you," she said, pulling a folded drawing from her pocket. It was her finest yet. 3 motorcycles roaring under a bright yellow sun, a woman and girl holding hands in the foreground, their smiles bold in crayon. "That's you, and that's us," she declared, pointing proudly. Cal knelt, his weathered beard twitching with a smile as he studied the page. "This is a keeper, kiddo," he said, his voice soft, folding it carefully into his vest pocket beside the first drawing she'd given him. "Means we're family now, right?" Lena nodded, eyes sparkling, and threw her arms around his neck, a hug that carried the weight of their shared journey. Tosha watched from a few feet away, her chest tightening with gratitude. Cal caught her gaze, his blue eyes holding a warmth that hinted at more than mentorship. A spark they'd let simmer, undefined but real. "She's got your fire," he murmured, standing. Tosha smiled, brushing her braids back. "And your stubborn hope." Societal echoes lingered, the incident's full-out reshaping the city's landscape. The officers' suspensions led to firings, their names fading from headlines, but etched in policy reforms. Mandatory bias training, expanded community boards, and stricter body cam protocols. The story of the bikers and the mother became a touchstone, inspiring cross-racial alliances that challenged stereotypes. Community forums flourished, bridging divides between neighborhoods and subcultures. The Saints' reputation shifted. Less outlaws, more protectors. While Tosha's advocacy grew, her voice a fixture in discussions on systemic change. "It's not about one day," she told a local reporter. "It's about making sure no one else feels invisible." The final scene unfolded at dusk, the sky ablaze with hues of amber and violet. The Saints gathered for a farewell ride before winter locked their bikes away, inviting Tosha and Lena to join at a nearby field for a send-off bonfire. The convoy roared in, engines a symphony of power, as Tosha and Lena stood on the grassy edge, hand in hand. Cal led the pack, his black Harley gleaming, followed by Bear's chopper and Tank's sleek ride, the club's emblem fluttering on vests. They parked in a loose circle, the rumble fading to a hum as they dismounted, greeting families with nods and grins. Lena clutched her teddy bear, eyes wide with awe at the bike's shine, while Tosha felt a peace she hadn't known in years, seen, protected, part of something larger. As the bonfire crackled, stories flowed. Bear's exaggerated tale of a charity-run mishap, Tank's quiet recounting of a kid they'd helped years back. Cal stood beside Tosha, his shoulder brushing hers. "This, us, them, it's what keeps me riding," he said, voice low. "You and Lena reminded us why." She nodded, the weight of his vest from that first day still vivid in her memory. "You reminded me people show up," she replied, her voice steady. A brief flash cut through the warmth. Lena's cry tearing through that blistering afternoon, her small form sprinting toward the diner, fear and courage in every step. Tosha saw it again, her own body pinned, the officer's shouts, the world's indifference. Then the rumble, the Saints' arrival, Cal's command shattering the injustice. That moment contrasted starkly with the present. Lena laughing as she tossed a marshmallow to Bear, the community woven tight around the fire, the peace of a family forged in crisis. Transformation had come through her daughter's courage, and allies who answered a call no one else would. As the bikers prepared to ride out, engines revving in a low growl, Tosha and Lena stood together, watching. The Saints rolled off in formation, Cal at the lead, his silhouette strong against the fading light. Dust rose in their wake, the rumble echoing like a heartbeat. Lena leaned into Tosha's side, her voice a whisper. "Mama, do angels ride motorcycles?" Tosha's affirming smile broke through, tears catching the firelight. "Maybe, baby. Maybe they do." The yellow sun of Lena's dreams wasn't just a house. It was this moment, this community, this hope realized under a sky that felt infinite. The bikes faded into the horizon, but their promise lingered, a vow of protection and change that would carry Tosha and Lena forward, forever seen.